Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee. I'll be calling an order in this meeting on April 14, 2026. My name is Councilmember Jamal Osman, and I'm the chair of this committee. Before we begin, I want to remind folks that this meeting are broadcasted live to enable greater public participation. They include real-time captioning to increase the accessibility of our proceeding to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speech and clarity of their comment. We will be using a speaker management, so please sign up. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Warren.
Present.
Schaefer.
Present.
Chavez.
Present.
Chigtai.
Present.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Present.
And Chair Osman.
Present.
There are 7 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. Our agenda is in front of us. We will begin with the consent agenda. Item 3 to 15. Item 3 is approving one liquor license. Item 44 is approving 22 liquor license renewals. Item 5 is approving a gambling license. Item 6 is approving a street naming of Burdell Beeks Way to replace 21st Avenue North between Penn and Queens. Item 7 is approving a legal correction to a land sale resolution. Item 8 is authorizing agreement with Met Council for cooperative funding for fair housing planning. Item 9 is approves agreement for Upper Harbor Terminal. Item 10 is grants park dedication fee waiver to Malcolm Yachts project. Lastly, item 11 and 12 are ordinance being referred to the staff. Item 11 is related to hotel regulations. Item 12 is related to safe outdoor spaces. Okay, with that, do any of my colleagues have any items they'd like to pull?
Can you please bring your mic closer to you so that I can hear you better? Thank you.
I will
We'll pull item number 6.
I will pull item number 6. Are there any other?
Yeah, Attorney Shutt.
Oh, City Attorney.
I'm just in queue for Councilmember Vita.
Got it. Thank you. With that, I will move all items except item 6.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay.
Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to vote aye on all items except 11.
Okay.
What would you like your vote to be on 11?
No, please.
Okay. All right, that motion carries. Now I will recognize Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Osman. I just wanted to speak to item number 6. Item number 6 is about Ms. Burdell Beeks, who was born November 22nd, 1957 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. From a young age, Ms. Burdell demonstrated strength, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to caring for others. She became a mother at just the age of 14, a responsibility she embraced with determination and grace, and she would go on to raise 3 children whom she loved fiercely. Through the challenges of being a teenage mother, Ms. Burdell persevered. Fueled by her compassion and work ethic, she pursued a career in healthcare, beginning as a certified nursing assistant at several facilities throughout the Twin Cities. Her dedication ultimately led her to North Memorial Hospital, where she fulfilled her goal of becoming a nurse. Over the years, Ms. Burdell served in many roles at North Memorial, including pediatrics and as a float nurse, touching countless lives throughout her professionalism, empathy, and skill. Ms. Burdell's life took a difficult turn when she was diagnosed with kidney failure in 2004. Her strength and the deep bond within her family were shown once again when her daughter selflessly became a kidney donor, giving Burdell renewed years of life and time with those she most loved. Burdell raised her children in North Minneapolis, first settling on 43rd and Newton Avenue North in 1982, And in 1994, she moved to her beloved home on 35th and Logan Avenue North, where she lived until her passing. That house became the heart of the family and the neighborhood, a place of laughter, comfort, and connection. Known for her caring spirit, Burdell was often called upon in moments of great need. Her daughters remember many nights where she received calls from facilities informing her that a client was transitioning and that the family wanted Burdell there. No matter the hour, she would rise without hesitation and rush to be by their side, offering comfort, dignity, and compassion during life's most vulnerable moments. Within her own family, Burdell was truly the pillar. She held everyone together through challenges and disagreements, ensuring that conflicts were talked through and resolved with love. Her home was a gathering place, whether for children and cousins after school, family visits after work, or joyful, playful barbecues filled with conversations and laughter. Burdell was affectionately known as the block's grandmother. Her home was a safe haven for neighborhood children, where they went if a parent wasn't home, if keys were lost, or simply if comfort was needed. Her door was always open, and her presence brought a sense of security to all who entered. Tragically, on May 26, 2016, Burdell's life was cut short when she became an innocent victim of gun violence. Though her time on earth ended too far, her legacy of love, service, and community lives through her children, family, and the many lives she touched. So this street remembrance is going to be in her honor. Miss Burdell was certainly a pillar in North Minneapolis. Her family has requested this street renaming in honor of the 10-year anniversary of her untimely death. And so, colleagues, I'm just here to speak on behalf of the family and let you all know how much she meant to not only them, but the entire North Minneapolis community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Vita. Are there any other members who would like to comment, or? I see none. I will make the motion to approve item 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next, we will proceed to the public hearing. Item 1 is we have a resolution authorizing a housing revenue bond to the Patinoa Commons and Loft housing project. I will have Haley M. Sorry, can say your last name from CBED to give us that presentation.
Thank you, Chair Osmond and Biz Committee members. My name is Haley McSparron, and I am a Senior Project Coordinator on the Residential Finance Team in CPED. Today I will be presenting information on the Bottineau Commons and Lofts project, which is located in the Bottineau neighborhood in Ward 1. Before you today is a request to authorize the issuance of up to $13.4 million in housing revenue bonds on behalf of the project. Before describing this request for bonds, I will provide the committee with a brief overview of the project. The Bottineau Commons and Lofts project is the preservation and rehabilitation of 2 properties in the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District, developed and owned by Sherman Associates. Bottineau Commons is an apartment building constructed in 2003 with 119 residential units. Currently, 69 units are affordable at 60% AMI, 25 units are affordable at 30% AMI, and 25 units are market rate. After rehabilitation, the market rate units will become affordable at 60% AMI for a total of 94 units affordable at 60% AMI and 25 units affordable at 30% AMI. Bottineau Lofts is located 1 block away from Bottineau Commons and includes 2 buildings. 1 historic building constructed in 1919 that was converted into an apartment building with 33 residential units, and 1 townhome building constructed in 2003 with 4 units. Affordability levels at Bottineau Lofts will be maintained after rehabilitation, with 22 units affordable at 60% AMI and 15 units affordable at 30% AMI. By refinancing the project, affordability will be maintained for an additional 40 years. Current affordability restrictions are set to expire in 2034. Rehab work for all buildings includes significant concrete repair, roof repair and replacement, improvements to building commons areas, updating mechanical systems to increase energy efficiency, safety upgrades, and improvements to unit interiors, including kitchens, bathrooms, and flooring. primary financing of the project includes housing revenue bonds, 4% housing tax credits, resubordinated debt from Minnesota Housing, and capital contributions from Sherman. Total development costs for this project are approximately $43.5 million. As described earlier, Sherman has applied to the city for up to $13.4 million in tax-exempt and taxable housing revenue bonds. The bonds will be issued in one or more series and will be used to finance construction and long-term debt. The bonds will generate approximately $14 million in 4% tax credit equity. This bond request is the last remaining funding the project needs and will position it to close in May 2026. All other project funding is committed. Staff is recommending approval of up to $13.4 million in tax-exempt housing revenue bonds, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We'll have the questions after the public hearing. Now I'm going to proceed to open the public hearing and see if anyone would like to comment. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and see if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments. Seeing none, Councilmember Chowdhury,
Yeah,
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
thank you. It's good to be in committee and
Yes.
not committee of the whole. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's good to see that we're moving along on some projects, especially in the Bottineau area. I know that there is a pretty strong need for affordable housing options, so really appreciate the work on this. Thank you to the applicant on this, and thank you to our staff for working on the housing revenue bond. And I will move this for approval.
Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I too want to thank the staff for the work on this, and I want to do a shout out. This used to be in my ward, and I see one of the developers is here today, Mr. Sherman, so thanks for coming down today. But I was impressed at how clean and neat the buildings were, and when I did talk to the residents when I was doing my voter outreach, no one ever complained about the management, which is amazing. So you're running a good shop over there. Keep up the good work.
Wonderful. With that motion from Councilmember Chowdhury, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. Thank you. Next, the last public hearing will be a few land sales apart from Minneapolis Property Purchase Program. I will welcome Ryan Nestigan from CBED. Got it? To give us more information about this. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chair Osmond and council and community members. Good afternoon. Today we are requesting approval for the sale and redevelopment of 5 city-owned properties located in the Falwell, Hawthorne, and Jordan neighborhoods. These sites are 3414 and 2714 Emerson, 3242 Girard, and 2319 3rd Street, and 2122 Ilion. They represent a critical opportunity to turn long-term vacant and boarded buildings into stable, affordable homeownership opportunities. By partnering with proven developers who have a track record of success in the Minneapolis Homes Development Program, we are moving past previous capacity challenges to ensure these homes are built efficiently. Our goal is to bridge the financial gap for families at or below 80% area median income, or AMI, and strengthen the fabric of these North Minneapolis communities. These properties were originally approved for sale between 2022 and 2024 through the Minneapolis Homes Development Assistance Program. Notice of funding availability. Unfortunately, several original land sales were canceled because of initial developers experienced challenges to close and begin construction on these projects. To ensure project completion, the city remarketed exclusively to proven developers who have successfully completed at least one previous Minneapolis Homes project, and we have reduced the sales price from the market price to $1 to ensure project is successfully completed. Following a request for proposals in 2025, in October 2025, the city received a robust response, 15 applications for these specific properties. CPED Real Estate and construction staff evaluated these bids based on strict criteria from the Minneapolis Homes Manual to ensure feasibility. The Falwell, Hawthorne, and Jordan neighborhoods were notified in December 2025 with no objections or concerns being received. This action recommends the sale of these 5 properties to be developed for owner-occupied homeownership at or below 80% area median income. The properties were priced at $1 each. While this results in a net sale loss of $404,995, this write-down is a deliberate investment to bridge the development gap and make these homes truly affordable. Beyond housing, these sales eliminates ongoing city maintenance costs and returns these vacant lots to the property tax rolls. To prevent further delays, developers are required to demonstrate the capacity to complete the construction in 12 months or less from the date of council approval. This recommendation represents a responsible and a strategic path forward for these 5 properties. We're moving from vacancy to occupancy by leveraging experienced partners and a proven program framework. I recommend the approval of these sales as noted in the attached resolutions. And I'm happy to take any questions after the public hearing is closed, obviously.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. I will proceed to open the public hearing and see if there's anyone who would like to come speak on this item. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and see if any of my colleagues have any questions for that presentation. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Council Vice President. First of all, I just want to say thank you, and I'm excited for the ownership opportunities for families to be able to take advantage and become homeowners here in the ward, and excited to see the developments unfold here in the Hawthorne and Jordan communities in Ward 5. So this is exciting. I'm very familiar with PRG and Molina Investments. I don't know Eastor Masters.
Yeah, he's that developer he's done a lot of our funded projects throughout the city.
Okay.
But he's a high performer on the development side.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are single family?
Yes.
They're zoned for single
Yes,
family or
all
duplex?
5 are single family projects. Yes.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm excited to see this move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question.
Yep.
Sorry, I have a question, and it sounds like you say we got 50 applicants?
15 submissions.
15,
yes.
So, okay. So the number of developers that are interested in purchasing the land and developing is huge. I know we're only forwarding 5 lands, but we have so many lands in the south side, especially, and I know I'm looking at the director of CBED there. We'd love to see those properties to be, to be developed. Because I have mentioned many times that there are properties that are out there just collecting dust, and it's a waste of taxpayers, and also they do create some problems, encampments and different neighborhood challenges specifically. So I know probably I'm thinking one of the challenging things that we might not able to take, 20 thing is might be staff time. I get that could be a challenge, but in the future I would love to see a list of more properties that are being offered to the developers, especially PIPOC developers that are willing to
Chair Osmond,
Thank you.
in committee, we are going through the process of scoring our 2026 request for proposals for single family development. So you'll probably see that coming in the next. Go ahead, Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Chair Osmond, Sherry Shoquist, Residential Real Estate Development Manager, working closely with Mr. Nessingen. We do have the Minneapolis Homes Financing RFP under review right now. We expect to get the neighborhood notifications out this week and bring those properties forward as well. The exact number is yet to be determined, but that will go far in addressing the vacant properties that CPED owns to bring them back into affordable home ownership and other options in our communities. The properties that Mr. Nestingen brought forward today are vacant rehab properties. The Minneapolis Homes financing will be primarily, there may be 1 or 2 rehabs in there, but it will be primarily new construction. We do have a handful of other rehab properties that may require funding, and we hope to bring those forward this year as well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so
you.
much. Appreciate your presentation. See no one else. I will move approval for this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. All right, we have been joined by Council President on the diocese, but next item is a discussion item about the John Cook appeal. This was last discussed in our last BIS meeting on last November, and it was before us now. Again, I will have Senior City Planner Rob Skalaki from CPED to give us a little bit of fresh memory about what's been happening in the John Cook house.
Thank you, Chair Osmond. And good afternoon, council members. I'm Rob Skalecki, Senior City Planner in the Historic Preservation Team in the Planning Division. As Chair Osmond said, this is following up from an appeal that was considered back in November of last year. So the Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee considered the appeal at their November 20th, 2025 meeting, and a public hearing was held at that time and closed for the John Cook House, located at 948 18th Avenue Northeast. I'll summarize the background of the property and the HPC's decision, and the appeal application and the timeline that goes along with that, but I will note that staff did draft a memo for this meeting that also does summarize that and is included for you to consider. So the Tyler Street Northeast John Cook House was designated in 2021 for its significance in the areas of social and architectural history under local designation criteria 4 and 1. The Cook House is significant as a local example of a brick Queen Anne house. John L. Cook was a mason who built the house in Northeast Minneapolis, and he built the house for himself in 1889. The house is also an example of immigrant housing in Northeast Minneapolis, so the area of Northeast Minneapolis where this is located had a significant population of Scandinavian immigrants at the time, so there are many people of Swedish and Norwegian descent who were recorded living at the home in the late 19th and early 20th century. In order to approve a certificate of appropriateness application that involves the destruction in whole or in part of any landmark at the city, the HPC had to make one of the following findings. 1, that the destruction is necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition at the property, or 2, that there are no reasonable alternatives to the destruction, and in determining whether reasonable alternatives exist, the commission shall consider, but not be limited to, the significance of the property, the integrity of the property, and the economic value or usefulness of the existing structure, including its current use, costs of renovation, and feasible alternative uses. So just a few slides ahead here. The HPC did concur with staff recommendations and voted to unanimously deny the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the building based on the following findings that are listed here: that the subject property retains significance, that the subject property retains all 7 aspects of historic integrity, that the property has not been maintained as required by the local preservation ordinance, that no unsafe or dangerous conditions exist at the property, and that there are reasonable alternatives to the demolition considering its significance, integrity, and economic usefulness. On November 20th, when Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee considered the appeal of the HPC's decision that I just noted, As I mentioned, the public hearing was held then and closed, but on that same date, the city did receive a written request from Jacob Steen of Larkin Hoffman on behalf of the property owner of 1717 Developers LLC to extend the decision-making period for an additional 6 months from that date of that written request. So BIZ committee was notified at that time of the property's extension and voted to refer the item back to staff with that in mind. So meanwhile, the property owner did plan on trying to find a buyer for the property in that time. The extension for the decision-making period does end on May 20th, 2026. Staff contacted the property owner in February of this year to receive an update on the possible sale, and the property owner did notify staff that there was interest from a potential community buyer, but that fell through in early 2026. The property owner did then list the building publicly online in March of this year. Staff is not aware of any other further developments of the sale. We did get a letter from the property owner's attorney, which is also included for council members to consider, just updating that there has been no development in finding a buyer. So staff is now bringing this forward to ensure that city council can make a decision before that May 20th date. And just a reminder that council must decide on the appeal of HPC's denial of a certificate of appropriateness application that's seeking to demolish the landmark. So with that, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Just to clarify, this is not a continuing item. Do we still have a public hearing? No public hearing, just a discussion item? Okay. All right. Sorry, I don't see my screen, but I do like to recognize Council President Payne, who is from his ward, who also has maybe some updates for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair Osman. Yes, this project or this house is of great interest to a group of community within Ward 1, and we were able to get a negotiated MOU together to offer them time to try to put together an offer. I know that during the surge, everyone got pulled into other priorities, and I think that this coming back around this cycle was a refresher for our community about the timelines that they're working under. There was a community meeting last week where there was a lot of discussion and a potential offer that was getting generated as a result of that meeting last night. And I don't have an update on whether or not that offer has been received yet, but I know that part of the MOU that was agreed to was conditioned on an offer, and it also set aside some fees that would otherwise be accumulating during this time. In speaking with our city attorneys, we do have until May 20th. If this group needs a little bit more time, the best course of action would be to relook at that MOU and perhaps adopt another one to provide for that time. But we didn't want to do a time crunch for today, so I was hoping that we could hold this decision for one more cycle so that we could get all of those details negotiated. And I'll lean on the city attorney if I got any of that wrong. Sounds like that's pretty accurate.
Thank you, Council President. City Attorney? Oh, were you going to add?
That was an accurate summary of our discussion.
Wonderful. Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, I will make a motion to delay this action item on this item till the BIZ committee on April 28th.
Right.
Second.
Wonderful. All right. Are there any other comments, questions? Thank you, Steph. All right. With that, motion to delay this item for one more cycle. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. All right. Next discussion is 2025 Met Council Livable Community Account Grant Award. I will have
Sherry Shoquist, Residential
Sherry.
Real Estate Development
Yes, welcome.
Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Osman, members of the committee. I am here before you today to provide first an overview of the Metropolitan Council Affordable Housing Program grants more generally, and then specifically I will provide information on the request before you today. The background on the grant programs: through its Livable Communities Act programs, the Metropolitan Council provides local governments with access to affordable housing grant resources in several programs, primarily including the Livable Communities Demonstration Account and the Local Housing Incentive Account, LCDA and LHIA. These grants help to expand life cycle and affordable rental and ownership housing development and preservation in the region. Both grant programs are highly competitive and oversubscribed each year. To describe the application process, developers of multifamily rental projects do not need to apply for LHIA grant funds through the City of Minneapolis, but rather apply directly to Minnesota Housing at the state as part of the annual Consolidated Request for Proposals process. Minnesota Housing and the Metropolitan Council staff review each application and decide which agency will consider projects for funding. LHIA grants must be matched on a 1-to-1 ratio by the recipient municipality, in our case the City of Minneapolis, with local dollars for affordable housing activities. In Minneapolis, the match is usually provided by the developer and/or the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. In contrast, developers of single-family homeownership projects apply directly to the Metropolitan Council for LCDA affordable home ownership grant funds. The one-for-one match is no longer required, and the Metropolitan Council did this to incentivize more affordable home ownership and to help reduce the racial disparities in home ownership in the region. Moving on to the acknowledgement of receptivity, the LHIA multifamily rental projects are required by state statute that an authorized official from the recipient municipality sign an acknowledgement of receptivity form for applications to be considered for grant funding by the Metropolitan Council. This form certifies that the proposed project is located in a municipality that participates in the Metropolitan Council's Livable Communities program, that the proposed project has an affirmative fair housing marketing plan, and that the recipient municipality or developer will match grant awards on a dollar-for-dollar basis. On September 25th of 2025, the City Council authorized the Community Planning and Economic Development Department Director to make necessary certifications to the Metropolitan Council to consider awarding LHIA for all future applicants that have been awarded funds from the City of Minneapolis. On the single-family home ownership project side, LCDA funded grants starting in 2026. These home ownership grants do not require the acknowledgement of receptivity form. The Metropolitan Council will accept a CPED director's report. The City Council approval process for acceptance of all of the Livable Community Act grants, if awarded, require City Council approval. Most of the projects recommended for LCA grants also have been approved for city funding from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or the Minneapolis Homes program. That is your overview, bringing me today before you for consideration of approval, the specific request today. The developer, Pezzo Star Properties LLC, has proposed to rehabilitate 4 homes for sale to households earning up to 60% of the American area median income or less, with a restrictive covenant through the City of Lakes Community Land Trust Perpetual Affordable Homeownership Partnership with the City of Minneapolis. To date, Pezzo Star has been awarded 1 of the 4 properties under the Minneapolis Homes Property Program and is expected to apply for the additional properties this year and potentially in the coming years. The request before you today is to accept a grant from the 2025 Metropolitan Council Livable Communities Demonstration Account Affordable Home Ownership Grant Program in the amount of $229,212 for the construction of 4 rehabbed homes sold to households earning between 41 to 60% area median income, and to authorize agreements with the Metropolitan Council, Pezzo Star Properties LLC, and to authorize the resolution approving the appropriation of funds. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And are there any council members who would like to comment or have any questions? Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. Could you just further detail out the relationship to the land trust and the perpetually affordable housing program and how this kind of goes together?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Chowdhury, Chair Osman. We have two organizations that provide perpetual affordable housing in this Minneapolis Homes Financing Project. One is Build Wealth Minnesota, and the other is the City of Lakes Community Land Trust. The developers reach out to either of those two programs to partner, and the partnership between the City of Lakes Community Land Trust and Pezzo Star Properties is something that those two parties worked out together before their application. It does provide a deeper level of affordability and a longer requirement of affordability.
Okay, and is my understanding correct that with the work that Pezzo Star Properties will be doing, this will still be properties that community members will be able to purchase and be a part of? That's kind of the relationship. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Great. Yeah, we've gotten several presentations about perpetually affordable housing, home ownership over the years, and this is a new piece for me, so thank you so much for helping kind of put it together.
Thank you.
I do have a question. You said the state requires for to have the government agencies basically sponsor. How many would you say developers get awarded through the Met Council that comes to us? I'm just seeing one here.
All of the developers that are building projects in the city of Minneapolis that apply for those funds must be approved by the city council. So you will see all of the approved developers before you. This year, I believe, I think it was in February, the residential finance multifamily developers that received awards through Minnesota Housing and the Met Council were before you and approved. Mm-hmm. In the past, this project would have been part of that process, but since the Met Council has now separated the LHIA and the LCDA programs, we brought this project separately from residential finance instead of pairing together.
No, thank you so much, Steph. Appreciate your work on that. Are there any other council members who would like to comment or question? See none, I will approve this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. Our last discussion item is a Spring 2026 Brownfield Grant application. I'll have Kevin Curl to speak on this item. Welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm Kevin Carroll. I'm a Principal Project Coordinator with the Business Development Division of CPED. Every 2 years or so, I have an opportunity to come and talk for 5 or 10 minutes about Brownfield grant funding. You see my reports more often than that. I like to think that the reason I'm not here every time is because over the last 20 years, we've kind of fine-tuned the program. I think it works pretty well now. It's well-oiled. It's kind of a uncontroversial part of the city enterprise, and there are multiple benefits to the city and its businesses and the city council. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the basis for this, why we're here. Brownfield grant funding is very important to the city of Minneapolis. Minneapolis has a long industrial legacy, and as a result, when developers are looking at sites, very often there's contamination involved. And in most cases, this is sort of accidental contamination, spills and leaking tanks and things like that. The contamination is also a result of, frankly, years of ignorance. Many years ago, we didn't understand the potential risks of asbestos contamination and lead-based paint. So virtually every Minneapolis site that's looked at for development or redevelopment is contaminated in some way. We're very fortunate in this area to have 3 local brownfield grantors that provide funding to address this. That's important in part because most commercial lenders will not provide financing or funding to clean up contamination. They say, we'll fund your project if you have a clean site. So developers have to go to other sources to get that money. In our area, they go to the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota, through its Department of Employment and Economic Development, provides brownfield grant cleanup funding, the Metropolitan Council, and Hennepin County. And they created these programs somewhere between 1993 and 2001. They were kind of created in sequence, deed first, Met Council second, Hennepin County third. And one of the nice things about these programs is that they've been in continuous existence during that entire span of time. They have 2 grant rounds per year. They coordinated their programs many years ago, so they have the same application deadlines. So every May 1 and November 1, applications go into all 3 of the grantors. They review them together. And sometimes they do a little horse trading. Sometimes someone asks deed for more than deed has. So maybe the Met Council, makes up the difference. It's a really worthwhile, beneficial system. I go to conferences sometimes around the country to talk about brownfield grant funding and learn more. They envy what we have here because many of them have grantors that work completely independent of one another, and ours coordinate their programs, and that really benefits the city. As I mentioned before, site contamination is one of the first impediments to development that property owners and developers often encounter. So we're great to have these programs to help us out. To quantify this a little bit, I've been doing this work for the city this is my 20th year. And during that time, by my count, the city has gotten 593 brownfield grants. The total grant funding amounts to about $141 million over that span of time. Because the funding doesn't come from us, because it comes from other parties, you might wonder why or how the city's involved. That's because from the beginning, the grantors have taken the position that the cities are the gatekeepers for their programs. They don't want to award money to programs or to projects that end up not using it. So they expect cities to basically look at the projects, make sure they have a reasonable amount of neighborhood support, they have their funding in place, they either have gotten or are likely to get all of the land use approvals that they need, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we're involved. When grant applications go in, they need to be accompanied by a city council resolution of support so the grantors know this is a project that's supported by the city of Minneapolis. So that's why you see these reports periodically. What you have before you today is the most recent staff report regarding the spring brownfield grant round. These applications are coming due very soon. We have 6 projects in this round that are planning on submitting 9 applications to these 3 grantors. They're seeking an amount just under $6 million. The reason that there are more applications than projects is because projects have the right to apply to 1, 2, or all 3 grantors. The larger projects typically need to apply to all 3 in order to cobble together the amount of funding that they need. All of the projects that are in the staff report have been looked at both by the Business Development Division and also by Housing. You'll note that several of the projects here are housing projects. We in Business Development rely very heavily on housing staff to review these projects, in particular because they're far more familiar with the funding stacks for those projects than we are. I can't say that every one of these projects has all of their ducks in a row, but they have enough in a row for us to be able to recommend them to you. We think they all have a reasonable chance of getting grant funding. The specifics regarding the projects are outlined in my report. I'd like to briefly highlight just one because this is a good example of what brownfield grant funding does. You'll see on the list a grain exchange redevelopment project. So if you leave by the front door today and shift your gaze about 45 degrees right, 1 block away, you'll see the grain exchange building. It's actually a combination of 3 interconnected buildings. As I understand it, it's currently about 80% vacant. So Sherman and Associates plans to redevelop all 3 of those buildings. They're going to put 232 units of housing into them, of which 80%, or about 186, will be affordable housing. They're going to redevelop and improve current office spaces and add an event space. They're also going to add some new ground floor commercial. At the moment, the primary impediment to that project is the fact that there is a substantial amount of asbestos contamination in those 3 buildings. In fact, the projected cleanup cost is about $2.7 million. So there are 2 applications in this round to 2 of the grantors seeking that amount of money. We're hoping that we get it all in one round. If not, we'll be back here again in 6 months, probably taking another run at it. So that's a good example of what brownfield funding does. It makes projects that are challenging less challenging by providing the funding that you need to clean up the site. So those are my prepared comments. I guess I'd like to end on a personal note if I could. I've enjoyed doing this work for the last 20 years. There are 2 milestones in my life this year. December 11 of this year will be my 20th anniversary, and I'll be retiring from the city on or around that time, in part because next Monday I'll be 72 years old. So I don't know that city employees have use-by dates, but if we did, I'd be approaching mine probably. So this committee in particular has been very supportive and encouraging during that entire span. I'd like to thank you personally, your predecessors, especially longtime Chair Goodman, who was also very supportive. This is a great program. It's I've been employed for a long time. I got my first paycheck job when I was 14. This is the best job I've ever had. So I'm very happy to be retiring from the city of Minneapolis as my last job. And again, thank you for your help and support, and I stand for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presentation and for your service to the city of Minneapolis. We really appreciate you staying along and doing the great work. We'll appreciate. I will recognize Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thanks, Chair Osman, and thank you so much for your work to the city. When I first started on the Biz committee, I remember your first presentation on the Brownfield grants really well, because I was like sitting there and I was like, what is this and why is this important to the city? And you did a really good job explaining it, as you are now for new council members that have joined us up here. So thank you for serving the city and many city councils before this one. And also, happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's exciting. I'm an April birthday as well.
All right.
So we're born in a good month.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rayenville.
Thank you. Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for all your service. I do have one question. You look great. What's the secret to your youth?
As my coworkers will readily attest, I found that I can create the illusion of youth by acting immature often. So that and some swimming and other things. But this is a good time for me to go, I think. I've got some grandchildren and some hobbies I'd like to devote some attention to.
Yeah.
Maybe do a little brownfield grant consulting on the side. But, yeah, so it's been a great job.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your newfound retirement.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Well, this is my first opportunity to be able to hear your presentation as a new council member, and I feel like you were very concise, and your overview really set the stage for understanding this process. Thank you for all of those stats that you gave, that you have had a part of bringing to life many projects in the city of Minneapolis. And I hope you have time in your retirement to drive around or walk or bike and see all of these places that you have invested time and energy into and celebrate that with your family. I am just grateful to see all these great projects. I mean, what a way to go out on some of these things that are before us today. I know the grain exchange redevelopment created a lot of stir in the press, even just seeing this on our agenda. A lot of excitement for people to see that move forward. Of course, the 7 Points redevelopment, excited about that. So thank you to everyone that is on this list and for your hard work in pulling all of this together. And congratulations on a storied career.
I appreciate all of that, especially the word concise. I'm Irish and I don't hear that very often. So. And I should mention that this brownfield grant work, it's not just me. I mean, what you see is the product of the collective work of a lot of people in housing, our legal staff, the planning folks look at all the projects and make sure that the project is consistent with all the city's, comp guide plan and zoning restrictions, et cetera. So it's always a group project in every round. I'm the lucky one who gets to stand up here and talk about it, but it's a group effort.
Thank you. Councilmember Chuktai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council Vice President Osman. Mr. Carroll, thank you for your service to the city of Minneapolis. Happy early 72nd birthday, and congratulations on your planned retirement. I hope that in retirement you take on some new hobbies, including I really think that you could have a knack for stand-up comedy. I don't know. Haven't heard so many laughs in here in quite a while, actually, so I don't know. I think it's something to consider.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you, sir. I will make the motion to approve this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. All right, we have one item left. We will be receiving a presentation related to a pet restriction rental properties. I will have Sarah Prenner from Legislative and Research and Oversight to give us that presentation. Welcome. Can you ask the city clerk if you have a question?
It's up to the chair if you would like to invite public testimony and within committee.
Well, we're not doing public hearing. Okay. Go ahead, ma'am, sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
Chair Osman, council members, I'm here to talk about pet restrictions on rental properties. And this is in response to a request from the City Council. From last year, June. Oops. Why is it?
Clerk, can you assist?
Have an idea here? Is this? We just try exiting out. Just close this one is what. Okay, trying that again. June of last year, this committee directed the legislative department to provide an overview of current pet restrictions, as well as available data on pet surrender, a national landscape of policies, and an analysis of potential challenges or barriers to the use of regulatory policies here in Minneapolis. The structure of this presentation follows those 4 requests. So first, the overview. So why talk about pets and rental property? Helping renters with pets is broadly considered a way to improve housing access and affordability. while potentially also improving animal welfare. Housing accessibility for renters with pets is not a small issue because it's actually over half of renters are pet owners. The literature focuses on 3 key indicators: the availability of rental properties that accept pets, the presence of restrictions preventing dogs by breed and size, and the prevalence and degree of pet rent and pet fees. To assess where Minneapolis stands on all 3, I looked at rental listings. I found that on a lower income budget, it is significantly more difficult to find a rental that allows pets in Minneapolis. When I looked at all rental listings on Zillow, 70% allow dogs, but when I narrowed the search to 2 bedrooms with a maximum rent of $1,700, about 52% of the listings allowed small dogs and only 39% allowed large dogs. So with an average family size and a slightly lower than median income, it is not that easy to find rentals that take pets, especially large dogs. There is an exception, of course, if a tenant can demonstrate they require a service or emotional support animal. By federal and state law, they must be allowed to rent with a pet, regardless of the landlord's no pet policy. For these pets, landlords cannot charge any kind of fee or deposit, but to qualify, tenants typically need a letter from a licensed professional, and lower income tenants are less likely to have this option. To examine the degree of breed restrictions and pet fees, I looked at 100 Minneapolis rental property listings that allow pets, have 2 or more bedrooms, and a rent of $1,700 or less. That's roughly equivalent to the median family size and rent in Minneapolis. And out of those 100 listings, 82% have a specific pet rent, or sorry, not specific, a pet rent. Another 71% have a one-time pet fee that's non-refundable, and then 63% have indicated a pet deposit that is refundable. And for context, there's about 10% of rental housing is considered free of major pet restrictions in the U.S., just to put that into perspective. Pet surrender. Nationally, housing is among the most frequently cited reasons for pet surrender, particularly among those earning $50,000 or less. So a national study of 1 million pet surrenders found that around 14% of people surrendered their pets for housing-related issues, and that's 14% of the people who actually indicated a reason. Bully breeds, that pit bulls, bull terriers, are the dog breed most frequently relinquished by owners. They are also the most prevalent breed of dog in our Minneapolis area, or the most prevalent breed falls into this category of bully breeds. They're almost always included in restricted breeds by landlord and insurance companies, and they are adopted at the lowest rates. At the state level, Minnesota-wide rescues and shelters have reported seeing record numbers of surrenders in post-pandemic years. Rough Start reported having to turn away about half their applicants in 2024. At the city level, the number of pets surrendered to Minneapolis Animal Care and Control doubled between 2021 and 2024. Low-income households are more likely to surrender pets for economic reasons, including housing. In 2023, Animal Care and Control began collecting data on the reasons for pet surrender here in Minneapolis. Of the 2,077 animals surrendered in 2024 and most of 2025, 13% of the owners cited housing issues if they cited a reason. While breed restrictions are not particularly new, the proliferation of pet rent and non-fundable pet fees have proliferated over the last 20 to 30 years, and jurisdictions have just begun to respond. The most prominent early adopters of comprehensive pet-friendly regulations are Colorado and DC. Beyond these two, there's just a handful of smaller cities that have taken similar action, and some jurisdictions have bits and pieces. In 2023, Colorado took the lead with Pet Friendly Rental Act. Like all the laws I looked at, Colorado's act prohibits landlords from charging non-refundable fees, pet fees. Colorado also prohibited landlords from charging pet rent more than $35 a month or 1.5% of monthly rent, whichever is greater. Refundable pet deposits are capped at $300. So opponents of the law worried that these caps were too low to protect landlords from pet damage. The act thus established a pet-friendly landlord damage mitigation program, which enables landlords to apply for state reimbursement for pet-related damage up to $1,000. The Colorado Act does not prohibit dog breed or size restrictions, but it does regulate insurance companies. And this is important as landlords tend to point to insurers' demands to explain dog breed restrictions. Colorado prohibits insurers from denying policies or increasing premiums based on a dog's breed. Insurers are not allowed to inquire about breed. They can ask if a dog has been deemed dangerous and deny policies accordingly, but they cannot ask about the dog breed. Colorado also requires all state-funded affordable housing to allow up to 2 dogs or cats per unit without breed or weight restrictions. And Colorado, as the first jurisdiction, uniquely provides evidence of impact. It was a concern that the act would lead to more landlords just not accepting pets and dogs altogether. And it turned out that when monitored by academics before and after the policy, they found a temporary 5% drop in the number of rentals accepting pets statewide. The evidence here on the slide is from Denver. The green line represents the policy change, and you can see there's a slight dip, 5% in the numbers of rental units accepting pets, but then it comes back. It's a temporary blip, so it comes back to the pre-policy level. Other cities and states have taken steps to help pet-owning tenants. Bellingham, Washington addressed all excessive or junk fees in rental housing in one ordinance. They included pet fees after discovering that large landlords were more than twice as likely to charge pet rent than small landlords. Bellingham requires landlords to choose between charging a refundable pet deposit or a monthly pet rent, and they set caps on both. The Bellingham ordinance also requires landlords to disclose all rental property fees, including pet fees, in listings and in applications. City staff explained that landlords were relatively supportive of these transparency measures. Bellingham initially developed city enforcement, but abandoned the idea due to cost. Like all jurisdictions I reviewed, enforcement is through a private right of action. So tenants facing violations can sue for three times the damages plus costs. In Los Angeles, they require all operators of multi-unit housing with funding from or through the city to allow at least 1 pet per unit. The ordinance allows landlords to set reasonable pet deposits, and it orders the city to work with the buildings to set pet rules. And finally, the California also requires state level financing for multifamily housing developments. If you receive state level financing, you need to allow at least 1 common household pet per unit. And DC, effective this coming October, DC will prohibit landlords from setting restrictions on dog breed, weight, or size. And DC is the first jurisdiction in the country to take this step. The DC Council started with data which revealed that while 80% of DC rental units allow pets, only about 6% are without breed or weight restrictions. The same survey, 72% of DC renters reported that pet-friendly housing is hard to find. And so the council concluded that low-income renters with pets were inequitably burdened, particularly those with large dogs of certain breeds. The scientific consensus suggests that breed is a poor predictor of whether dogs are dangerous or not. Some on the council argued that the cultural association of certain bully breeds with communities of color contributes to their perception as dangerous. The ordinance was therefore considered a measure to advance housing access and equity. DC's ordinance also requires housing providers to abide by caps on pet rent and security deposits. Finally, also some states like Texas and Florida have laws prohibiting public housing authorities from having pet policies that include breed restrictions. MPHA, the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, allows tenants to have no more than one cat or dog weighing no more than 25 pounds, and they also have prohibited dog breeds. So looking at the final three slides here are about the options the city could take going forward and looking at the rationales and the risks. The options are not mutually exclusive. The first option is prohibiting dog breed and weight restrictions in rental properties. There is a clear rationale. Dog aggression is not scientifically linked to a dog's breed or weight. Around 20% of Minneapolis rental listings noted breed and weight about 40%, if we take them together, of the rental listings noted breed or weight restrictions. And many more likely have such restrictions, but just didn't include it in the listing. Such restrictions can be a barrier to housing, particularly for lower income tenants with large dogs or breeds commonly prohibited. This includes bully breeds, which are the most prevalent dog type in Minneapolis, and this undoubtedly contributes to Minneapolis's rising number of pet surrenders, putting pressure on Minneapolis animal care and control. There are risks to prohibiting breed and size restrictions. So far, only Washington, D.C. will take this step in October. So there's no evidence either way on the impact. One concern is that by prohibiting breed restrictions or size restrictions, landlords may respond by deciding not to accept dogs at all or pets. There are two reasons to think that this is a risk in the Minneapolis context. The first is that landlords may fear losing non-pet owning tenants who do have concerns about fears about large dogs or particular dog breeds. The second is that landlords typically point to insurance policies, and they can still do so to suggest that there are higher premiums for dogs of certain breeds. In Minnesota, our insurance companies are prohibited from canceling or refusing insurance based on dog breed, but they are not prohibited from charging higher premiums. Minneapolis could work with the state to strengthen its statute in this regard by prohibiting insurers from raising premiums due to dog breed. Nevada, Colorado, and New York can serve as a guide. Through regulatory services, another option is the city could also proactively educate landlords on the availability of pet-inclusive insurance options. And finally, the city could choose to advocate for the state to prohibit public housing authorities from setting breed and weight restrictions, as in Texas and Florida. The second action the city could consider is to cap pet fees in rental housing. Jurisdictions that have taken this step describe it as an effort to prevent low-income renters from having to choose between a home and a pet. Forcing such choices contributes to growing numbers of pet surrenders, can be a barrier for housing. And in a national survey, pet-owning renters identified pet-related fees as the largest complication to finding homes. Landlords have pushed back on these regulations. They maintain that pet fees and deposits are needed to offset the risk of property damage from pets. Pets can, of course, cause significant property damage. Evidence, however, suggests that the average amount tenants pay in pet fees exceeds the average cost of pet-related damages. This suggests that some landlords may use pet-related fees to disguise the cost of rent, or some of the rent. And given the widespread use of pet-related fees in Minneapolis, there is a risk that capping these charges could cause landlords to increase base rents. But there is little to no robust evidence on this. After capping fees in Colorado, there was no spike in rent. It could be that the competition in the rental market is enough to prevent rent increases. Another risk is that in the face of lower pet fees, landlords decide to not allow pets at all. But again, the evidence in Colorado suggests that won't happen. The last risk is that in response to lower fees, more landlords will require tenants to obtain renter insurance with pet liability coverage. Primary liability for pet-caused damage does rest with the pet owner. But landlords may still want additional coverage. Page 18 of the brief includes a summary of all the caps and prohibitions on pet fees for 5 jurisdictions. The last options, number 3, the data gathered suggests that lower income renters in Minneapolis have significantly fewer pet-friendly housing options than higher income renters. So the city could consider addressing this by requiring that housing with city financing allow 1 or 2 pets per unit. Los Angeles ordinance, again, does this for multifamily housing developments, requiring that if they receive funding through or from the city, they need to allow at least 1 pet per unit. Alternatively, the city could work with the state to require state-financed housing to allow at least 1 or 2 pets per rental, and that's following the lead of Colorado and California. But any such action should be taken with consideration, should take into consideration consultation with affordable housing providers to make sure there's no negative impact. The last option is to consider increasing transparency around pet and other fees. So Minnesota statute requires landlords to disclose all non-optional fees on the first page of a rental lease and in advertisements for rentals. However, pet fees are optional fees, they're considered as such, and therefore transparency is not required. The city could work with the state to require landlords disclose all fees, including pet fees, in rental listings and agreements. States such as Connecticut, New Mexico, cities such as New York and Bellingham all have laws with this requirement, recent laws. And these laws are seeking to ensure prospective tenants have complete cost information before they receive the lease, when it might be too late to back out. The city of Bellingham found that costs, including pet fees, were not always clearly communicated ahead of time, leading some tenants to complain about being locked into costs beyond their budget. Requiring all fees to be communicated up front could also have the benefit of increasing competition. In the Minneapolis listings I reviewed, pet fees were often difficult to pinpoint. It was not always clear if pet fees or deposits are charged per pet or otherwise, and around 30% of the listings did not have specific amounts to be charged. And with that, concludes my presentation, and if there are any questions, I'm here.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I will see if there's any council member who would like to discuss. Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair Osman, and thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. I really appreciate it. So this is a legislative directive that me and President Payne brought forward sometime last year. It was a long time ago that we brought this forward, and we decided that we were going to have the presentation happen at the first biz committee. So it's been ready to go since the end of the last term. And I just kind of wanted to share why this was an issue that was coming to the forefront for our council offices. And it's really twofold, and they're related. So first is there are many constituents that have reached out to my office, to other council members' offices about issues with finding housing in the city of Minneapolis when they have a pet. Even some homeowners have shared with me that like they're ready to downsize, but they have particularly a bully breed, quote unquote, a larger dog, and they want to move into renting. Because they don't need that large family home anymore, and it's been really difficult for them to make that change in life because they feel like they are locked in to the place that they have, and a lot of people feel very locked in to where they are. And I will just like uplift in the presentation that it's been our understanding from constituents, and then also talking to animal care and control, that this is something that predominantly impacts people who are lower income, right? And lower income people already have a lot of limitations in terms of their housing options. And it's just one of the things that adds to the cost of living. And then also if we're talking about people having opportunity for upward mobility, to save money, to have stability, this is another barrier that we see. The second part that is on the twofold piece of it is when it comes to our animal care and control facility. So I really encourage anyone that hasn't had an opportunity to tour the animal care and control facility there. They do a really good job with what they have. They take care of all of the animals that are surrendered to them, and they also are trying really, really hard to make sure that pets get adopted, but also try to limit the number of animals that are surrendered. And housing reasons, I think it was 276 that was stated as a reason, is a part of that. And a lot of the breeds that you see that are waiting for adoption or are surrendered are bully breeds, really, really sweet animals, but their owner, for whatever reason, a lot share housing, has had to surrender their pet to animal care and control. And so it's created this perennial kind of issue for our city services. And I have also heard from a lot of different advocates in the pet space. A lot of them are partners with the city of Minneapolis. My Pitbull is My Family is an organization that we work with that has shared that this is something that they care a lot about, doing education in the community about just the fact that there isn't a scientific link that a specific breed leads to a specific type of aggression. And so there'll be more work that I'm planning on bringing forward. I think that this is something that we should take a deeper look into to see what we can improve. One of the questions that I did have for you, Sarah, is if you could kind of speak a little bit more to what you found in your research about this perception of larger breeds being aggressive, and kind of the information that you found that there isn't a true basis for that, and kind of the things that you've found out about misconceptions and things like that.
Yes, thank you. I think this, Chair Osman, Councilmember Chowdhury, yes, there is a good deal of misconception in this area. One striking statistic is even the bite reports that come through. People are identifying the dog breed visually, just by sight, when they report on dog bites. And there was a study that looked at the DNA match between the the best guess of the person reporting and the actual breed of the dog, and it's about 40% of the reporting of dog bites is actually they're reporting the wrong breed. So there's a lot of like sort of misconceptions around this, and that in the conversations in DC, they use the analogy of to when landlords would prevent kids from tenants with too many kids or kids of a certain age from renting, that was sort of discriminatory as deemed in the 1980s when we stopped that. That was their sort of working analogy. Also, the perception of these dogs as dangerous might come from perceptions of their owners, being a part of a community of color. So those were sort of the two currents that drove the DC decision. There's also legislation in California to prohibit breed and weight restrictions, but that was unsuccessful. So it's just DC that's actually moved forward with it, but it's other places that have been looking at it.
Yeah, thank you. And the research that I've done from a lot of different veterinary hospitals is that this alignment of like different traits like loyalty or aggression based on pedigree alone is completely false. It actually has to do a lot more with training, how the dog is brought up and how their owners are taking care of them. That matters a lot in terms of dog behavior. And also, I know that like the city of Minneapolis is a really pet-friendly city across all of our wards. I joke all of the time that I represent more dogs and cats than I do people in the 12th ward. Sometimes I would say like just in one neighborhood, I probably have more dogs and cats than I do in the entire whole of the ward. So I really appreciate this presentation. Thank you so much. And then also thank you for uplifting kind of like the racial discrimination and history around the association of a type of breed and the communities that more likely have that type of breed. Really appreciate it.
I'll recognize Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm a dog mom, and I love my dog. And I think that, the presentation that you gave was really, really good, and keeping in mind, and people should also really pay close attention to the fact that if you do have an animal and it may be your emotional support animal, that is also something that you really should talk to your physician about your pet, your companion, and what that means as far as giving them an official title and relationship to your family, not just a pet, right? And knowing the things and the responsibilities that come along, with a pet. I know that a lot of complaints that I get from residents, even within my ward, is about people not cleaning up dog feces in the yard, or individuals who may be neighboring yards with one another, not cleaning up or cleaning up on the boulevard or in the grass or whatever the case is. But clean up after your animals, treat your animals well, and your animals will treat you well, And I think people a lot of times don't know that, like, animals really, like, they have feelings and they remember things. If you do something evil to an animal, they retain those things. So treat your animals good, like, love your animals. And I know that it's frustrating for property owners, for individuals who have animals and they've come into a home and they've done damage to the home. But wonderful places like the Humane Society, they offer things like puppy kindergarten. My dog went, it was wonderful. There's different places that will help you to train train your animals so that they are social and are able to, live places. You have to, make sure that you educate your children on how to live in rental properties. You have to make sure that your pet has the proper training and things like that so that they can live wholesome in community and be the companioned friend that you want them to be, and be respectful in a space. And, and if it's not your space and you're renting there temporarily, do all that you can to ensure that your animal respects the property just as much as you do. And I know it's challenging, but it's a part of our fiduciary responsibility and being community. So, but thank you for your presentation, and I hope that, people receive all of this very well.
All right, thank you, Council Member. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I will direct the clerk to file that presentation. And seeing no further business before us, with no objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.